Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. One man's anonymous and live account of if he should get a divorce or stay married. He's been cheated on, and he's cheated. Protecting the innocent with changed voice patterns, the omission of names, ages, and genders. His authentic journey and account of the daily events of his marriage are helping him sort out his feelings and not get lost in the ups or the downs. New episodes are released daily. Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
The red pill rage is real. This is the reboot of the Divorce Diaries podcast where I still go through the decisions that I'm having as a man. It does have a little less to do with divorce because divorce is an external thing. Divorce is a result of, and it's a committed choice. I had a lot of rage. Everything that happened to me from an external source. My wife did something to me. My kids did something to me. My parents did something to me. And everything was always happening to me. And I was always the victim. And I wanted the world to know that I was the victim. And the accountability that I thought I was taking in my life, I wasn't. The ownership and the problems that were in my life that I thought I was taking on myself, I wasn't. And the conditional love that I had for other people that I didn't think I had. It was a culmination of just blinded, non-accountable, finger-pointing rage. It doesn't mean everything I said was wrong. It doesn't mean my perspective was wholly off. But it does mean that I was jaded and or wrong and or misguided, whatever. And I've had a paradigm shift in that perspective, and now I understand myself, I would say, a little bit better. Probably not fully. I'm sure in 2 years, 5 years, I will say, man, remember that shit you recorded on the 29th of April 2021? That shit? Yeah, you don't think that way either. So yeah, I think that what I'm going to do is possibly to help anyone that might think they have red pill rage, or they want to hear what rage looks like. They want to hear someone that is just finger pointing and blaming their life's problems on other people. Someone that's trying to escape the full accountability of their actions as it relates to their current situation. You can listen to all the shit that I put up, and I may put it up. I don't know if I ever will, but I may put it up on Patreon because it's a little bit damning to me. Sure, I don't use any names, and I change my voice, as you guys can hear, and I plan on this being the most discreet diary recording ever. But for me, sometimes going back to listen to that, it lets me know the person that I was and the perspective that might still be lingering inside of me right now. It does say some very personal things about my family that, you know, when my wife and one of my kids, they found out about this podcast and what I was putting out there. And, you know, at the time, I'm like, you know, what's the big deal? This is just my diary entry of me deciding if I'm going to get a divorce or not. But it was still, even though you, the listener, might not know exactly who we are, exactly where we live, exactly what we look like, exactly what our names are, you do know the gist of our problems from my side, and that I'm not saying it is slanted, but it's one side. I mean, it is what it is. It's one-sided because it's one side. And now also me looking back at everything, I'm like, wow, my one side was also full of rage and just full of anger that I had toward my wife and what she did. And even though, yeah, I may have done this one little thing, but she did that real big thing, and it just hurt me. And it's just being a guy that's fucking emotional as fuck and being butthurt, it just comes out in the form of rage. And it did, and it came out blaming. So if you want, go over to Patreon to support. I don't know if the episodes will be there when you go over to support. I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to support this podcast, you can go over to Patreon and subscribe. And I may post the Red Pill Rage stuff over there so that you can save yourself. Acknowledge if you share some of my perspectives that I recorded at that time and say, man, it's not me, but as I'm listening to him, I sound like that. And maybe you can head off some of your potential problems that you're creating for yourself like I was creating for myself. Maybe you can help yourself like I wasn't able to before you do something that is maybe unforgivable. Because I had to first understand, oh, why is my kid so upset at me? What's the problem? And the kid had to say to me, like, Dad, that's my mother. You are calling out all of the horrible things that my mother did and you made it public. And initially I was vexed. I was pissed. I was rageful. I was red pill rage, but still, I asked you don't listen to it. That's not for you to hear. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's not for me to hear. I heard it and it's out there and it's public for everyone to hear. And it's about my mother. The kid was asking me to look at it that way. And I'm like, oh shit. I got a machine gun. I fully loaded the drum and I just started firing because I was so angry. I didn't aim. It wasn't ready, aim, fire. I just fired before I pulled the gun all the way out of the holster. I fired as I was coming up to the target. I fired all around the target. I fired with my eyes closed because it was hard to hold the gun still. And I hit everything in the room. I hit my wife, I hit my kids, I hit myself. I didn't care who the hell I hit. I just hit a bunch of people and a bunch of things. And man, do not become emotional to the point that I was, and you become so filled with rage and anger and hate and frustration that you do what I did. And if you want to know what that sounds like, I may put that toxicity up on Patreon, but I may not. It may just be these thoughts that I have, but you know, just maybe presented in a different way. I'm not sure, because I may just write some things there. I don't know. I don't have any plans for the Patreon, so just know that if you are going to go over to the Patreon and support, I appreciate it, and it would mean right now to me that you like it and that it's helping you. But otherwise, don't exactly go over there expecting anything specific. Thanks for hearing this little mini rant as I drive on my way to work. Red Pill Rage, it's a thing. Don't let it consume you like it consumed me.
Wow! That was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully, these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.